Hey, what's going on, crypto people? Listen, we're gonna hop into this live stream with Hugo and Flair, the rest of all the XRPFi protocols. I'm gonna get into this thing, just get directly into it. Let me share the sound. And yeah, we're gonna like check this thing out 1000% live. Um, let's make sure I got everything I need. Get that out of the way. And let's listen in.
Exactly. And I would argue that if you look at the data, despite everything that is happening on the markets, XRPFi is on the rise, activity on Flare is looking good. And actually, in this regard, I wanted to check in with Dhruv, maybe our head of DeFi, to know more about his perspective on this. How are you doing today, Dhruv?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing well. I I personally didn't get too drunk over Thanksgiving, so I am not the one puking your coins, but yeah, I'm doing very well.
Awesome. It's nice to hear that that you're
Oh, looks like it might have cut off here. Um, and I don't know if that was them or me. Let me leave and rejoin.
Yield based on that staked XRP. So we have that coming, and then you have PTs that will then float within our ecosystem, which will be very interesting to see how that's used as collateral, of course. So I'm very excited for the next couple months, and the overall progress that we're
Yeah,
making
they
in our
can hear a
DeFi
lot better than me.
ecosystem is very, very enticing.
For the listeners, what are PTs and how do they work?
Yeah, so Spectra is a yield trading app, um, and they will be launching on Flare shortly here. And essentially, what you can do is that in this yield trading app, if you have a specific token that is yield bearing, let's say something like S Flare or staked XRP, you can deposit it into Spectra, and you can acquire a PT and a YT. The PT is your principal token plus a fixed amount of yield, and then the YT essentially trades the amount of yield or the excess yield, which allows you to yield trade, which is a bit more speculative, but gives you access to yield, and essentially allows people to get fixed yield and then also trade the variable yield on top of it, depending on whether they're bullish on the project or not.
Hey, I think I can hear you guys now, but Drew, you should just always talk about Spectra. I don't have to now. I'll have you in for every space.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Absolute Unit. But if you want to build on that, that'd be huge.
I think you did a great job. All that I'll say is, when it comes to the PTs and the YTs, like it can be daunting, especially for a lot of people, but the easiest way to think about it is a PT is just a way to lock in a fixed rate, just like Drew said, just like Thanos said. Is if you want to lock in, let's say if you go on the Spectra app and you see a fixed APY of 12% on, let's say, staked XRP when it launches. This is all just, I'm making up a scenario right now to be clear. You buy the PT, you're pretty much locking in that 12% if you hold it till expiry. Now you can always trade out of that position at a later time and maybe not reap the full 12% fixed APY. Um, but that's how that works. And then how YTs work is you're essentially buying the yield from that many. So if you were to buy 1,000 YT dash staked XRP, what you're buying is the yield from 1,000 YT or from 1,000 staked XRP. And the reason why this is like such a powerful thing, especially in DeFi, is typically if there's points programs, if there's any sort of like speculative yield component, you can kind of lever up on exposure to the points program. So like if you're bullish on Firelight, if you're bullish on XRP yield in general, or you're bullish on the growth of essentially what the underlying is doing, which I don't know if I can mention that, but it's pretty cool. Then that's a great way to gain that exposure. You can also just LP in the pool and just gain passive exposure to everything. We say LP, and last thing we'll say, LPing in the pool. Like if you're to just take 1,000 staked XRP, put it into the Spectra LP, it's just like holding the underlying position plus trading fees, plus any points boost, plus Spectra emissions, plus maybe Flare emissions as well. So it's kind of like pick your own path there, and you can choose what kind of risk appetite you have, what you're most bullish on, or if you just want to get straight XRP yield, the easiest way to do that is with PTs. So yeah.
That was super awesome. It's actually one of the topics that we're going to discuss today, but I see that Hugo has his hand raised. Hugo, you want to add something?
No, I unraised it ages ago. I was just gonna say it's very similar to like stripping the coupons from a bond.
Dude, exactly. It's like a zero coupon bond is a PT.
Interesting. And we certainly are going to go back to this topic because the question about like how does this work and the risk involved is like explain me this like I'm 5 years old is for sure something that is coming up. A lot of people ask, and Dhruv and you guys today did amazing already explaining it. But I think that it's worth, checking in one more time. But before moving into that, I just wanted to provide a little bit more of context to our audience because what I've noticed is that, okay, we have this full DeFi ecosystem around XRP via FXRP, and we do have obviously users that are just coming in and they want to know how do I get yield in the simplest, safest way. That's one of the questions for newbies. Then for more advanced people, they are looking into Spectra. I'm pretty sure they are looking into Firelight Spectra and how to deploy more advanced strategies. And in between, you have all of these users that are, already holding FXRP, probably supplying some on Kinetic, and trying to learn about how they can get more exposure in a safe way. So we have this broad spectrum, and I wanted to touch base with Hugo to learn from his perspective about the evolution of XRPFi from the moment it was originated, like the vision, right, up until now. How do you see things evolving?
I mean, I think it's two tracks, or there's been effectively our aspiration as a team, as a project, to effectively allow people to use their XRP in a programmable way, right? Well, yeah, XRP and later other tokens like Bitcoin and the other very large non-smart contract tokens to be able to use those tokens in a programmable way such that they can partake in the same kind of things that everyone has been partaking in for a long time in other smart contract enabled ecosystems. So that's always been the genesis of the project. And what has happened?
This thing keeps disconnecting. I don't know why it keeps doing that.
You name it, there's been huge innovations. So what's really great for us is because we chose the EVM approach, a fully programmable smart contract language. Unlike if we were to build like a network that had sort of fixed functionality, we've been able to build on our track, which is let's get something done with XRP and Bitcoin and all these other high value tokens, whilst other people have been innovating in other areas. And because Flare is fully programmable, we can effectively bring those innovations immediately to the chain without having to change any aspect of the chain. And I think this is absolutely key thing for people to understand about the full programmability that the EVM environment and Flare offers. So that's kind of the evolution and the continuation and where we are today. So what Flare is bringing is essentially full programmability for assets that don't have that, starting with XRP, and being able to immediately harness the innovation that has taken place over the last 7-8 years in DeFi.
Yeah, and one thing that I always like to highlight is that at Flare, how we had handled to build this entire ecosystem around FXRP. Of course, there are network effects, and I think that one particular example is this space that we're having right now. So moving forward, I see that our guest from Firelight also joined it. Uh, so I'm looking forward to touch base with you. Who do we have here? Can Can you tell
Yes,
us how are you doing today?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, all good.
Great. Perfect. Well, yeah, so very nice to meet everybody. I'm Connor Sullivan. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Firelight. I joined a couple weeks ago. Prior to joining Firelight, I was at Fireblocks for 5 years. So some of you might know Fireblocks, the largest institutional digital asset platform, working with 2,000 plus institutions. I work there on the corporate strategy side, working with large institutions that were deploying billions into DeFi. So, great experience there. And then prior to my time at Fireblocks, I was an underwriter in the reinsurance industry for 8 years. So, really Firelight kind of combines the two things that I really know well and love, crypto and insurance, right? And we really are looking to kind of build out an institutional grade DeFi cover, protocol, which Firelight will be. And, I'm coming on as Chief Strategy Officer, but we're, really being incubated by the Centaura team, who I'm sure you know well as well, who, are managing billions, as a risk manager for major institutions in the DeFi space, right? So the Centaura team brings a lot of credibility, connections, and also just an understanding of risk that is really, bar none in the industry right now. So yeah, just wanted to do a quick intro, and then happy to get into more details around, what Firelight solves for, what we're really looking to launch, this week with phase 1, and then what, phase 2 and, next year looks like, if that sounds good.
Yes, that sounds amazing. So maybe let's try to explain in very simple terms what is the problem that you guys are solving and how you're addressing this, and then like talking about the 2 stages, right? Because people have been asking about that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to. So yeah, in very simple terms, and I know, when you're talking about insurance and DeFi cover, you can easily kind of go down a rabbit hole and get, lost in the details. But I think, what my job is, and what I think what Firelight does a good job of is really trying to simplify this, offering this value and then the risk that we're, eventually underwriting. So in very simple terms, Firelight turns idle XRP into productive asset that earns yield while helping secure blue chip DeFi protocols. Really, and what that security means is, smart contract on-chain risks such as smart contract hacks, Oracle failures, bridge issues, and also economic attacks, right? So liquidation cascades, all of the things that you've likely seen happening very frequently over the last couple of months. That's what Firelight is built for, and that's why we think the timing and the demand for this type of product has never been better, right? Obviously, it's really hard to see a lot of these events, over the last couple of months, but we just think that really just solidifies the use case and why Firelight, launching now is so important. So really what we're building at Firelight is a platform to connect idle assets like XRP to the ever-growing demand for DeFi cover, right? From protocols like Aave, Morpho, Euler, right? And, what's powering that is institutional grade modeling, which has already been developed by the Centaura team. I'm working with that team to really kind of refine that and put into insurance context. But, we have the benefit of 1,000 plus risk models in production that are managing billions, for top institutions today. So really think, the work that the Centaura team now has done over the last couple of years, now connecting that and putting that into an insurance DeFi cover context is a perfect marriage, right? So that's what really Firelight is going to begin solving starting next week with phase 1 pre-deposits opening up.
So, okay, speaking about the pre-deposits, I've seen a lot of questions about the points, right? And the fact that I think we did have some sort of whitelisting before or some sort of campaign. I actually participated, now that I remember. But yeah, would be nice to touch base on that and learn more about like what's coming in regards to this.
Sure. Yeah. So, you can think of phase one as, we're opening up the pre-deposit vaults this week. There will be more communications and, direct communication, especially to the whitelisted users that, have already expressed interest on, how to access, right? So at Firelight.finance, we have the Git book launching this week that'll be publicly available with all the details. But really what phase one is, looking as pre-deposit vaults, zero slashing risk. You put your FXRP into the Firelight launch vault, or the Firelight launch vault, you receive your staked XRP, and we're going to have different deposit caps. So the points will really be tied back to if you were within the first deposit cap, which is going to be launched this week, and then as we meet to those deposit caps, we'll be kind of ramping those up over the next month or two, and really the points, what points you get allocated are related to which deposit cap that you came in on. So if you start this week and you're in the first deposit cap, you'll receive 2x points boost, and it'll kind of work up from there as we release those deposit caps, right? So all that information and communication is going to be coming out this week. And I think it's important just to note that, there's no slashing risk within phase one. You'll be able to just really, park your staked XRP there, get passively accrue points. And then phase two will open up early next year. And that will be the feature complete DeFi protocol, where you can then use your staked XRP to, basically provide DeFi cover to blue chip protocols like Aave and Morpho that we are, currently, getting deals in place, to basically ensure the major blue chip vaults across, the biggest, protocols that you know and love, right? So a lot more details going to be coming out about, who the launch partners are, which protocols, but you can think of Firelight as really being embedded at the protocol layer with all the blue chip, lending pools out there.
Amazing. And one thing that I've seen people also wondering is about like the potential risk associated. Maybe we should go down and explain what is this slashing risk that is not going to be present now and how it's going to impact in the future. From my perspective, and I think that this is kind of general knowledge, right? Staking is one of the most secure ways to gain yield from an asset, right?
Exactly. That's right. So, what we're going to be doing over the next month or two is putting out a lot of, collateral understanding of what this risk actually is. And I think our job is to really get people comfortable with, what it means to, stake your XRP and put it behind DeFi risk, right? So what is that DeFi risk? We kind of split it up into two main
Wow, this thing is just terrible.
the likes of, some of the larger, blockchain auditors out there, and really kind of diving deep into how many times they've been audited, how, are the auditors reputable, at what frequency have these audits been updated, and really kind of going deep on the technical risk and the smart contract vulnerability side of things. And then on the other side, there's economic risks, right? So it's just governance attacks, liquidation failures, a lot of stuff that you've seen, been happening frequently over the last couple of months, right? So we kind of look at those two main categories, and we're building, a back-tested institutional grade risk model, kind of taking those two into account and building, a capital efficient model where we're taking in, low yielding assets like XRP and putting them to work behind some of these risks. And I think, the way Anthony, our CEO, likes to explain it, which I think really helps visualize this for people, is, you can't right now put your XRP into an Aave or Morpho pool. And I think if you could, a lot of people would gladly do that, right? And when you do that, if you're depositing your XRP, if you're able to, into an blue chip Aave market or blue chip Morpho market, you're already assuming a lot of these same risks that Firelight would be protecting, right? So now you have that opportunity to gain likely better yield than you would by just depositing into Aave or Morpho and assuming the same risk, right? So if you think about it that way, it's a pretty compelling thing, right? So it's no different than just depositing your XRP or into Aave or Morpho, but now you're getting better yield and you're assuming the same technical and economic risks, right? So that's how we really try to visualize this for the LPs, the collateral holders, right? So it's a much more scalable and probably much more better use of putting your XRP to work behind Firelight versus directly doing this in the DeFi context.
Just for the listeners' context of what that means, who may not be familiar.
God. This thing.
Of the amount of assets that are deployed to those markets and kind of who are the people that they would know that do deploy to these kind of markets that aren't just individuals. I just want the audience to get a sense of like how established these markets are.
Yeah, Hugo, that's a great point to point out. I mean, right now you can look at Aave as the largest almost digital bank on earth, right? And I think they've started to kind of put out, if you go on their website, they list every single bank in the world, your mom and pop commercial bank all the way up to JP Morgan's, and Aave is sitting there in one of the top 50 banks in the world by deposit size, right? So right now Aave is approaching almost 100 billion in assets. And then you have others like Morpho and Euler that are, probably growing faster. They don't have as much as, Aave's been around and it's been tested, has the largest TVL, but others like Morpho that are integrating into the front ends of the largest fintech apps in the world, like Coinbase and Crypto.com, right? So a little bit different model, but huge scale and huge distribution through some of the biggest crypto exchanges and fintechs in the world, right? So, the scale that we're talking about is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. But one thing that is, holding back that scale on their side is, as more traditional institutions and honestly just, users that are used to that banking experience where they do have that FDIC backstop or the insurance backstop, that part has been missing. And that's really what Firelight is looking to solve, right? We're not looking to, go after the degens who are already very comfortable taking on huge amount of risks in DeFi. They've been doing that. Nothing's going to change the way that they operate, but the 300 to 500 billion that's sitting on the sidelines, looking to deploy, but needs that assurance, like, a FDIC like backstop or insurance being embedded into the protocol layer. That's what Firelight is going to be, bringing to the ecosystem.
Awesome. So to be blunt and to give a synopsis of that, Firelight is looking to ensure protocols that have already hundreds of billions of dollars in them. These are blue chip protocols that people already trust with hundreds of billions. And the Firelight protocol is being built with the idea that if it's successful, it leads to hundreds, if not trillions, more capital coming on chain. And one can imagine what that means for Firelight itself.
Exactly. And that's 100% right. Yeah, we think that insurance is, really the unlock to kind of bring in that next wave of capital. We've seen that, not just in crypto, but in every kind of, scale up in different markets. When I started as a reinsurance underwriter, cyber risk was this new thing that nobody could really figure out. And now the cyber risk insurance market is in the hundreds of billions of dollars, right? There's a lot of similarities there. And what you really need is to bring in, people that really understand risk, people that understand how institutions think about risk and really kind of speak in their language, right? So obviously we're a crypto native team, but the Centaura team and myself come from institutional backgrounds, and I think what we need to get to that next phase is really bring in institutional risk underwriting and understanding of what those users on the other side that are looking to deploy need to get comfortable with.
100%. You can't just be crypto native only these days. You've got to have both sides of the coin.
Exactly. And I think that's, we have, with the Centaura team and myself that, that pedigree there. So that's why we're really excited. We think the timing couldn't be better. The conversations we're having, with the Flare ecosystem, but also with the protocols and, the large users of the protocols is, this isn't a nice to have. This is a must, right? So the demand is there, and, we're happy to be able to connect that demand with a huge supply of XRP.
Amazing. So we know already that probably hundreds of trillions are waiting there. There is a demand. We want security first, right? And speaking of on-chain actions, because I'm looking to transition here and talk a little bit more about the rest of the ecosystem, I would like to touch base with Alexius from SparkDecks. And if you could give us a quick intro to SparkDecks, how people can utilize FXRP already, and how they can expect to utilize STXRP in the near future once Firelight launches.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. Wish the markets were a bit greener, but that's okay. I'm sure in a little bit of time that I should turn around, and I'm sure we're all here for the long term as well. So yeah, quick intro to SparkDecks. Essentially,
Did you say SparkDecks?
engine that allows the facilitation of swapping of different assets, trading, and features such as liquidations to happen. So you need a decentralized exchange on chain to allow for this liquidity layer, to allow other DeFi Lego blocks, projects like Firelight, projects like Kinetics, etc., to facilitate the swaps of ST, XRP, other assets. So there's liquidity available on chain, facilitate liquidations of different assets for lending markets that are on chain. So a couple of really cool and interesting things that people will be able to do with the FXRP and also shortly STXRP from Firelight will be LPing on the DEX in a decentralized manner. So imagine you get your STXRP and you pair that with FXRP and you create that LP on SparkDecks. By doing that, you'll be able to obtain trading fees, so different rewards, providing your liquidity to facilitate these swaps. And you should also be able to earn some rewards, some Flare rewards as well. So that'll be one cool use case coming up shortly when STXRP is available on chain. Another really cool thing that we're looking to do as well, once there's been a sufficient amount of liquidity built up as well, will be allowing users to deposit as collateral their STXRP into our perps market as well. So you can deposit your XRP into the perps market, which will allow other people to use their STXRP and to allow them to essentially take out leverage trading positions. And for those that deposit, they'll be able to accrue different rewards in terms of trading fees and incentives as well.
Awesome. I think this was a nice intro to what you can do in principle once Firelight goes live, what you can do with this asset. And looking into perhaps the future, what is kind of the main thing that you're looking forward? Because we see that the Flare ecosystem keeps evolving. We will.
Oh boy.
DeFi Hub, where users will be able to come to our front end and interact with essentially all the main protocols on Flare from our domain, right? From our UI. So users won't have to leave and open up different tabs on the site. They can just have everything at their fingertips coming to SparkDecks. So we'll be looking to do a lot of integrations, a lot of partnerships with all the main protocols on the Flare ecosystem, which is something really exciting and I'm really looking forward to. Personally, one of the things I'm really looking forward to as well that I'm pretty excited about will be our governance. So, we have launched our token at the moment. Essentially, you can stake that and earn a share of all the different revenue sources that we have. We streamline 50% back to token holders that stake and 50% buys up Spark token and burns that. But something I'm really looking forward to is governance, which will really activate the community. Their voices will be heard, and in a more direct way, they can essentially lead and direct the Spark protocol to go down the ways that the community wants.
Interesting. I'm really looking forward to everything related to governance. I just like to learn and participate on those things. It feels nice to be on chain and have a say on anything that is related to big DeFi protocols such as you guys. So moving forward, since we are a little bit tight on time, and by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Luminate as well. That is incubated by SparkDecks, as far as I understand. You guys are doing an amazing job simplifying the user experience in general. I know that today you announced F swaps, and I would encourage people to check it out. It's like very simple way to go and move assets across multiple chains, including XRP. So I don't know. I think that it's worth paying attention if you're someone that is moving funds on chain constantly, like I am. So moving forward, I want to talk with Darren from Enosis. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
Good. I'm wondering. Guess what I'm wondering about Enosis? When CDP?
When CDP? We are looking not this week. It will not be this week. This week goes to Firelight. We want all focus on that for everyone to have a chance to learn about Firelight and start participating in Firelight. We are looking at post this week. I can say that much.
Post this week.
Spicy. That's interesting. So, okay, maybe let's take a step back, and explain, as in 5 years old, what is CDP and why should people care about?
So, Enosis Loans is the name of the protocol. It's a friendly fork of Liquidity V2, which is a successful protocol on the Ethereum network and has some other forks elsewhere. We are bringing that protocol to Flare specifically to be the first CDP backed by XRP. A CDP is a collateralized debt position protocol. Effectively, you're able to supply your FXRP or wrapped Flare to start with as collateral and borrow against that. The borrowing mechanism is different than a traditional lend to borrow in that the counterparty to your debt is the protocol itself. Rather than borrowing tokens that someone else has put up as lendable tokens, you actually mint a stablecoin from the protocol itself that is collateralized by your debt tokens. What that allows is you're able to take that value from your XRP, from your Flare, without having to sell those assets. Those assets remain in the protocol. They can still accrue yield. They can grow in value, but you now have a stable coin that you can use for either leveraging up, purchasing other assets. You can use those to help stabilize the protocol. You can use them in LPs on our DEX or elsewhere. Eventually, the use case will grow into lending as well on other protocols. But yeah, it effectively lets you borrow against your FXRP, against your Flare, and access the value that's stored in those assets without having to sell them.
Got it. That's an interesting use case. And in regards to Firelight's launch, what is something that you're really looking forward? I know that you guys are also kind of like DeFi savvy, so I just wanted to learn more about your perspective and opportunities and whatnot.
Yeah, so we'll be watching the growth of Firelight and Staked XRP. We'll be talking with them as they grow, and at some point, we do anticipate adding Staked XRP as a collateral choice for minting in the loans protocol. So you'll be able to mint against FXRP or STXRP. We're trying to keep things as focused on XRP as possible, but there will be flare options such as wrapped flare and S flare as well. But yeah, we're excited to see that come in because it's always nice having yield earning assets that are used as collateral. That's always nice to have, so that you have not only price appreciation, but you're actually earning yield on your collateral against your debt, which goes a long way to helping pay off debt over time as well. So that's something that we're excited to see. And yeah, I mean, eventually, when we get big enough, it'll be interesting to look into using Firelight for what it's supposed to be, which would be in insurance for the protocol itself.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So from a user's perspective, at some point, maybe they will have to choose whether they want to supply FXRP or STXRP. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, they could choose one, they could choose both. They can supply whatever assets they have when it comes to that spread. Yeah.
Okay. Messed up again.
Solutions. But I think that it's going to be fine because, I've seen all of our builders paying attention a lot to education and improving the user interfaces and whatnot. So congrats on that to everyone. Next, I want to move forward and talk with our friends from Kinetics. Jake, how are you today?
I am fantastic, but how are you? How's this been going for you?
So far, so good. Super happy
funny.
about having all of our builders here. And by the way, a shout out to the Flare, to the marketing team at Flare, and to our intern for coordinating all of this. It wasn't easy, let me tell you that. So Kinetic, how should I get started with Kinetic if I have my XRP?
Well, I guess the easiest thing to do, right? The first step that it's not super complicated is you can supply it. You can supply your FXRP to Kinetic, and you will earn. This is one of those things where you start with something simple and then it's going to get a little more complicated, just because when it comes to a lending market, if I was explaining this to someone for the first time, you supply stuff, you borrow stuff. It's very similar to how banks handle loans, in that you pay interest on them. The difference is there's not a specific due date, right? That you have to pay back the entirety of the loan. If you keep your balance in good standing, meaning that you have more collateral supplied than you have assets borrowed, everything's fine. You don't need to pay it back ever, theoretically. Most people want to eventually clear that up, but it is possible to leave your assets in the protocol, have a borrow out, and if everything remains in good standing, you can keep it going. So it's a little more active, right, than a traditional loan. There's not as many meetings compared to a traditional loan, quite not as much paperwork, which I see as a benefit personally. When you have your FXRP, you can supply it right into Kinetic, and you'll immediately be earning some yield. Let me go over some specific numbers for you folks. If you go to app.kinetic.market, the first thing that'll pop up is our market page, which has all our assets. It has the APY, it has how much is supplied, has how much is borrowed. And my favorite feature, if you expand the menu, click on the asset, you can see, well, not just my favorite feature, but quite a few people's favorite feature. You can see the current borrow cap, That's something that comes up quite a lot as a lot of people see these incentives and they wish to borrow more so they can supply those incentives, and they're very interested in the borrow cap. That's a little thing. If you're taking the same asset, supplying it, borrowing it, and then resupplying it, that, my friends, is a little thing called looping. I also wanted to take this opportunity of talking to the Flare community to remind everyone that when it comes to USDT0, Flare and us have implemented a looping curbing policy. So if you are supplying USDT0 on Kinetic, either in the primary market or in the ISO market, ISO just means isolated, as it's isolated from the main market. We tried to be cool with the terminology there, ISO, but some people get confused. Just means isolated. It's very simple. But if you borrow USDT0 in either of those markets while also supplying it, you will not get our Flare for that. So just wanted to put that out there. I have to repeat that a lot. Some people had a rude awakening to that the last time incentives were given out a few days ago. I expect that will continue for a bit as people get up to speed with that. Why are we trying to do that? Well, it's pretty simple. When you just let people continually loop the same assets and get incentives on those same assets, it depletes your incentives, which is hard if you want to keep giving incentives out to people and new people and not the same money over and over again. I think that is fairly clear. So I guess the simplest thing is if you have an asset, whether if it's FXRP, if it's USDT0, if it's USDC, or any of our other assets, you can supply it. It's simple. You don't need to enable it as collateral to earn APY on it. The majority of the APY you're earning is going to be in our Flare. If you hover over the APY number on desktop or on mobile, if you click the little tooltip, tooltip's a little lowercase I with a circle around it. If you click that, you'll see two figures. One is supply APY, which is that's the amount of your asset that is being added to your balance every few minutes or so. And then you'll see distribution APY, and that's our Flare. The way our Flare works, I'm basically just trying to go through a lot of my frequently asked questions here. The way our Flare works is it's reward Flare. Essentially, it's a reward token. On Kinetic and on other protocols, you earn it, you accrue it, right, from supplying throughout the month, or more specifically throughout the rewards epoch. And there's a wonderful blog post called Guide to Our Flare, published by Flare, that I would love if people check that out and read it, that goes over epoch dates and some more information. But you earn over that epoch, and then the next epoch is when you can claim your R Flare from the Flare.
Kinetic cut out. I think this is gonna be my last time doing this.
Just wait. Usually it's the same day. It'll be sent through the R Flare portal. Everything's okay. Every month it's people who are new freak out, which honestly is a good thing, because it shows that every month we have new people coming in. I might have railroaded you into basically doing a tutorial. So feel free to ask me another question.
I mean, I had some other questions, but you were like super clear. So the only question that I have, which is
Okay.
Onto their seats. If you don't have a shirt on, I recommend you keep it on. Pants optional, but I want you to be ready and braced for this. We are going to add.
Jesus.
I'm going to try to get it up as soon as we can.
fair enough. No hard dates on that, and I respect that. Because I know that you
hard
guys are
dates are tough in this business.
Yeah, it is. So no worries about it. Thank you so much, Jake. Now, because of time, I have to keep moving forward. Wow, it's been an amazing space. Time goes flying, really. Now back to Spectra. maybe, okay, you explained the spectra already in very simple terms, I think. So my next question would be, what are you expecting in terms of behavior of from the users at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say I kind of just want to incentivize people to just choose their own path and just to learn more. Um, if you're not very familiar with yield trading, it's a huge industry in TradFi. Multiple trillions of dollars, and there's so much that you can do, and we're still kind of even in the infancy within DeFi. So I would just recommend learning more. There's so much that if you have any like theses, or if you just like XRP, I mean, LPing in the pool is probably the easiest way to like LPing in a Spectra pool is probably the easiest way to gain exposure. I'd say the second easiest thing, if maybe you're just more excited about getting the yield, buying the PTs is always great. And as we get PTs listed on some of the
All right. Well, I think we're going to hop off here. Let's see. 25 minutes. It keeps going in and out. So anyway, yeah. So that's I wanted to share that live stream there with people from Spectra, people from StarkDecks and SparkDecks, Kinetic Markets, what Enosis Loans as well, Enosis Loans, Enosis Global. It's an amazing ecosystem that's being developed on Flare for sure, and a lot of synergy as well. And of course, the massive launch of Firelight and DeFi cover. We'll start that December the 3rd. That's going to be ginormous, in my opinion. And I find it fascinating that Firelight is starting with the biggest and the best of protocols. Looks like it's going to be Aave and Morpho. And we'll see who are going to be some of the other partners in this. But I am certain that Aave is excited about this launch for Firelight. I'm certain of that. And yeah, it's going to be a really, 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 really awesome project, especially long term, thinking 3, 4, 5 years from now. So Flare ecosystem is growing in a big, big time way. So really, really excited about that. You can go to @Flare Networks to get this live stream, and hopefully you'll be able to listen to the recording without it dropping like it has been doing on this live stream here. Market for Bitcoin is crazy how Bitcoin was just 90 something thousand. 92? I think it got up to as much as 92. Now it's down to 84 in a matter of hours, which is really, really crazy. I have to listen to Alessio Orstani. He just put out a video on it. So I'll do a live stream on that video as well. He just put one out. I respect him a great deal. So I don't know about always being right. I don't think any trader is always right, but I think he comes with the, again, this is a world renowned trader. So TA guy. So I'm going to listen to that. I'll bring that to you guys maybe later today as well. I appreciate you guys hopping on here. Do me a favor and hit that like button if you didn't get a chance to do so on the way in. Please do so on the way out. That'd be awesome. And if you happen to be in that 55% or so of people that are hanging out, listening to and watching the CryptoCeeJ, if you've been enjoying those hangouts, please consider subscribing to the channel. Where we have a goal to get to 10,000 subs. We're just a few hundred away, and you can do your part by hitting that subscribe button right now so we can make that happen for you guys and bring you more awesome content. We appreciate each and every one of you guys being here for sure. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you know whenever we go live or whenever we upload a video. I'm going to end this video like I do all my videos and remind you guys of this. Old money doesn't want you to win. But that's okay, though, because you and I, we're already winning. And I would ask you to consider this, perhaps ponder the idea or notion of living your life permissionless. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.